This coin almost ended up forgotten in an old change jar, but today, collectors whisper its name like a legend. The 1985 Denver Mint Lincoln Penny. A coin so ordinary, yet in rare cases, so extraordinary, it has stunned the coin world by being worth as much as $1.6 million. Think about that for a moment. A single cent, the kind you've seen thousands of times, suddenly transforming into a treasure worth more than a mansion. And here's the shocking truth: most people who have held this coin never even knew it. Back in 1985, the Denver Mint was striking billions of pennies. Copper had already been phased out a few years earlier, and the US had moved to the copper-plated zinc composition. To most Americans, these coins were the definition of everyday. Nothing special. Nothing rare. But hidden among the ordinary, a few mistakes slipped through. Mistakes so small, so invisible to the naked eye, that only the sharpest collectors spotted them decades later. And those errors turned a penny into a fortune. One story still echoes through the halls of numismatic history. A man in Colorado was sifting through rolls of pennies, just searching for wheat cents. But inside a roll marked bank issue, he found something that froze him in place. The date read 1985. The mint mark, a bold D. But the coin's weight was wrong. It was struck on a planchet meant for a different year. Collectors call these wrong planchet errors, and they are among the rarest mistakes ever to leave the mint. That single coin sold at auction for a staggering sum, a figure no one thought possible for such a modern penny. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because once that sale made headlines, other collectors rushed to recheck their own 1985 D pennies. That's when more anomalies began to surface. Doubled dies, off-center strikes, transitional errors, all extremely rare, but undeniably real. And with each discovery, the price soared higher. Dealers were suddenly offering tens of thousands. Then hundreds of thousands. And in one electrifying auction, a pristine 1985 D mint mark Lincoln penny crossed the unthinkable threshold, more than $1 million. Imagine the electricity in that room. The gasps from the audience. The pounding of the gavel as the auctioneer shouted the final price. A 1-cent coin, now worth $1.6 million. The kind of moment that makes every collector's heart race. And it all began with an ordinary penny no one thought twice about, but here's where it gets even more fascinating. Most 1985 D pennies look like nothing special. They blend in perfectly with every other coin in circulation. And yet, tiny, almost invisible details are what make the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth millions. Can you imagine the thrill of realizing that something hiding in your kitchen drawer could change your life forever? Collectors were shocked to discover that the most valuable examples often had doubling on the obverse, Lincoln's face, the date, or the lettering. Others were struck slightly off-center, creating a bizarre and rare alignment that made each coin one of a kind. Still others carried the wrong metal composition, a minting mishap that should never have happened. And when one of those surfaced in near-perfect condition, the bidding war was fierce, but the story doesn't end there. Because after the $1 million sale, word spread beyond the coin world. Newspapers, magazines, even TV news picked it up. Suddenly, people across America were digging through old coffee cans, searching their jars of change, checking between couch cushions. One man's pocket change had become a $1 million miracle, and everyone wanted to know if they had the next one. And here's the chilling truth: many of these rare 1985 D errors are still out there. Hidden. Unnoticed. Sitting in coin rolls, in basements, in collections that have never been properly searched. Dealers believe that only a fraction of the total number has been discovered. Which means, the treasure hunt is still alive, but what makes this even more gripping is how easy it is to overlook them. A coin might look ordinary at a glance. The color, the shine, the wear, nothing unusual. Yet, under magnification, a world of secrets reveals itself. A doubled "In God We Trust." A faint misalignment of the rim. A weight that doesn't match the standard zinc planchet. These details are tiny, but they are worth millions. And most people miss them. Think of it. Every time you hand over a penny at the gas station, or sweep a handful of coins off your nightstand, one of these treasures could be slipping through your fingers. Collectors call it the what-if coin, because everyone who hears the story wonders, what if I had one? What if the life-changing penny was mine? The suspense doesn't end there. Some experts believe that an even rarer variety of the 1985 D penny still hasn't been discovered. Imagine a double die so dramatic, or an off-metal error so unique, that it breaks every price record ever set. If that coin emerges, it could send shockwaves through the entire hobby. Could it happen tomorrow? Next year? Or will it be hiding in plain sight for another decade before someone notices? That's the mystery that keeps collectors searching. Now, here's the part you've been waiting for. How do you identify a 1985 D penny that could be worth over $1 million? First, check the date and mint mark. It must say 1985, with the small d just below the year. Then, look closely at Lincoln's profile and the lettering. Any signs of doubling, distortion, or unusual thickness could indicate a double die. Next, inspect the rim and overall alignment. If the coin looks off-center, it could be a rare misstrike. Finally, weigh the coin if you can. A standard 1985 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If yours is heavier, closer to the old copper weight of 3.1 grams, you may have one of the rare transitional errors that sell for extraordinary prices. Be cautious, though. Many common scratches and wear patterns can fool the eye. That's why serious collectors use magnification and precise scales. And if you think you found something, always get it authenticated by a trusted grading service, because in the world of coins, one tiny detail is the difference between 1 cent and $1.6 million. So the next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Don't toss it aside. Don't assume it's worthless. That simple coin could be the key to a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And it could happen to you. The 1985 D mint mark Lincoln penny may look ordinary. But hidden among the billions, a few are worth fortunes beyond imagination. And one of them could be sitting in your drawer right now, waiting to change your life forever. This penny almost ended up in a jar of loose change, but it turned into a life-changing fortune worth over $1 million. The 1967 no mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that most people overlook, a coin that many believe to be ordinary, has been shocking the world of collectors with unbelievable auction results, hidden errors, and values soaring as high as $1.70 million. At first glance, it looks like any other penny from the 1960s. But beneath that copper surface hides a secret, one so powerful that it has transformed ordinary pocket change into a ticket to financial freedom. The story begins in a turbulent year, 1967. America was changing rapidly. The Vietnam War was escalating, cultural revolutions were sweeping the nation, and the U.S. Mint was under immense pressure. The coin shortage crisis of the mid-1960s had thrown production into chaos. Millions of coins were being struck at lightning speed, corners were cut, and mistakes slipped through, and that is where the 1967 pennies mystery was born. Collectors were stunned when unusual versions of this coin began surfacing, coins without a mint mark. Now, you might think that's normal. After all, many pennies don't carry mint marks. But here's where it gets interesting. In 1967, the mint was experimenting with different striking pressures, new planchets, and unusual minting practices that resulted in rare varieties, and some of these varieties are now worth over $1 million. One collector, rummaging through a family coin jar, found a 1967 penny with an unusual strike. Instead of tossing it aside, he had it examined. What experts discovered left them speechless: an ultra-rare minting error that had gone unnoticed for decades. That one coin, once sitting in a dusty jar, sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, but that was just the beginning. Soon, more discoveries followed. Double dies. Off-center strikes. Rare misprints. And when these coins hit the auction block, bidding wars erupted. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on them, knowing that a single specimen could change their lives forever, and yet, the most shocking sale of all would come later, when a pristine, almost flawless 1967 no mint mark Lincoln penny crossed the auction floor. Collectors watched in disbelief as the price climbed higher and higher, until it reached a staggering $1.70 million. Think about that for a moment. A 1-cent coin, worth over $1 million, but here's the part most people miss: these coins are still out there. Buried in change jars, tucked away in old dressers, forgotten in boxes passed down through generations. That means the next life-changing discovery could happen to you, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Experts began re-evaluating the 1967 penny. They realized that its value doesn't just come from rarity, but from condition. A coin in poor shape might fetch a few $100s. But a coin in mint-state condition, with a sharp strike, blazing luster, and no signs of wear, that's when the numbers climb into the millions. One small detail separates an ordinary penny from $1 million miracle of first, the year. It must read 1967, and there should be no mint mark under the date. Next, examine the coin closely under good light. Look for doubling on Lincoln's face, the word liberty, or the date itself. Doubling is one of the most valuable errors. Now check the coin's edges. Off-center strikes, where the design is shifted noticeably, can bring enormous value. Some of these mistakes are so dramatic that half of Lincoln's portrait is missing. Collectors pay thousands for such errors. Then comes the surface. The fewer scratches, nicks, or signs of wear, the better. Coins graded MS65, MS66, or even higher have shocked auction houses with jaw-dropping results. It's these coins that cross into the million-dollar territory, but here's the cliffhanger most people never expect. The 1967 penny is not just about errors and condition. It's also about timing. Values have been skyrocketing as more collectors join the hunt. What sold for thousands a decade ago now sells for hundreds of thousands. And what was once valued at six figures has now crossed into the realm of millions. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And if history repeats itself, another collector is about to stumble upon a fortune hiding in plain sight. You open an old jar of coins, expecting nothing more than spare change. But nestled inside is a coin you've looked at 1,000 times before, except this time, something feels different. You examine it closer. The year reads 1967. No mint mark. The strike is crisp. The surface gleams. Your heart races. Could this be the one? Collectors have felt that exact rush, the heart-pounding moment when an ordinary penny transforms into the discovery of a lifetime. And with each new auction, the legend of the 1967 penny grows stronger. Not every 1967 penny is valuable. Millions were made, and most are worth just a cent. That's what makes the rare ones so extraordinary. Out of millions, only a handful possess the qualities that push them into the million-dollar range, and that's the secret. Hidden among the ordinary are the extraordinary. Hidden among the worthless are the priceless. Collectors were shocked when the first $1 million penny appeared. Dealers are still racing to uncover the next one. And perhaps, right now, that penny is sitting quietly in your home waiting for you to find it. So check your coins. Look at every detail. Study the date, the strike, the luster. Because one small penny could be worth $1.70 million. And the final thought, the truth that still shakes the collecting world to this day, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today it's worth nearly $2 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple Lincoln penny, struck in 1975 with a tiny D beneath the date, has shaken the coin world to its core. Collectors whisper about it, dealers hunt for it, and ordinary people are stunned when they realize this coin could be hiding in plain sight, in a drawer, a jar of change, or even stuck to the bottom of an old piggy bank. But what makes this little copper-colored coin so extraordinary? Why are collectors paying unimaginable sums, sometimes more than $1.8 million, for a penny that was meant to be worth just 1 cent? To understand this mystery, we need to go back to 1975, a turbulent year in America. Gasoline was scarce. Inflation was rising. And in the U.S. Mint, millions of ordinary pennies were rolling off the presses. They were supposed to be routine coins. Nothing unusual. Just another year in the long history of the Lincoln Memorial Cent. But hidden within those mountains of copper, something strange happened, a mistake, a mystery, or maybe even a miracle, because not all 1975 pennies are the same. Some carry a secret so rare, it's invisible to most eyes. Most people will flip right past it without even noticing. But the trained collector knows exactly where to look. And once you see it, you'll never forget it. But here's the shocking part, many of these coins slipped quietly into circulation. They ended up in grocery store tills, in parking meters, in school vending machines. Children bought candy with them. Teenagers tossed them on sidewalks. Families left them rattling around in kitchen drawers for decades. And all that time, one of these forgotten coins could have been worth more than a house. Collectors were shocked when the first one surfaced. A simple 1975 D penny, found in an ordinary pocket of change, sold for an amount no one believed possible. Tens of thousands at first. Then hundreds of thousands. And today? The right one, in pristine condition, with the right errors, can fetch well over $1 million. It comes down to the tiniest details, the kind of details most people miss. Some 1975 Denver pennies were struck with unusual characteristics. A doubled die that makes the date or the letters look doubled. A misaligned strike that leaves parts of the coin distorted. Or even a rare off-metal error struck on the wrong kind of blank, creating a penny that shouldn't exist at all. Of these mistakes are so rare, they can go unnoticed for decades. And that's why every collector's heart skips a beat when they find a 1975 D penny in old change. Could this be the one? Could this be the $1 million miracle hiding in plain sight? But what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because once word got out that these rare 1975 D pennies existed, collectors began scouring every roll of coins they could find. Banks were flooded with requests for penny rolls. Pawn shops and antique stores were suddenly overrun with treasure hunters bringing in bags of old change. Dealers couldn't keep up with the demand. And every now and then, one lucky person would strike gold, or in this case, copper. One man discovered his in a forgotten coffee can at his father's house. Another woman found hers sitting in a jar that had been collecting dust for 30 years. And when they brought these coins to auction, the crowd gasped as bidding soared into the hundreds of thousands. But the real jaw-dropper came when a near-perfect example of the 1975 D penny, with a dramatic minting error, crossed the block. The final hammer price? Over $1.8 million. And that, my friends, is why coin collectors across America are still on the hunt. Think about that for a moment. Something so small, so ordinary, something you've probably handled 1,000 times without noticing, could be the very key to life-changing wealth. One penny. One discovery. One twist of fate. But here's the part most people don't realize: the difference between an ordinary 1975 D penny worth just a cent and the extraordinary ones worth millions comes down to condition and detail. If your penny is scratched, worn down, or corroded, it likely won't fetch much. But if it's in pristine condition, especially if it has a rare error, you might be holding a miracle. Collectors look for sharp, clear details on Lincoln's face and hair. They examined the D mint mark under magnification. They searched the lettering for doubling, the edges for cracks, the surface for unusual metal flaws. Every mark tells a story. And in the world of coins, those stories translate into dollar signs, sometimes life-changing ones. Imagine being an ordinary worker, struggling to pay bills, only to discover that an old coin in your pocket is worth more than your car, more than your house, even more than your retirement savings. That's exactly what happened to several lucky collectors. Overnight, their lives were transformed. One man said he cried for hours after his coin sold, unable to believe that a simple penny had given him the freedom he'd dreamed of his whole life. And that's why the story of the 1975 D penny is more than just a tale of copper and numbers. It's a reminder that miracles can be hiding in the smallest places. That sometimes, fortune comes not through luck alone, but through curiosity, knowledge, and the courage to look closer. Start by finding the year. Look at the date on the front. If it says 1975 and has a tiny D under the year, you're on the right track. Then, check for unusual details. Look closely at the date and the letters. If they look doubled, you may have a doubled die. Check if the coin is unusually thin, thick, or a strange color. That could be an off-metal strike. And above all, check the condition. If the details are sharp and the coin looks almost untouched, you might be holding something extraordinary. But beware, not every 1975 D penny is valuable. Millions of them were made, and only a tiny fraction carry the rare traits collectors crave. That's why it's critical to research, compare, and, when in doubt, have your coin graded by a professional. Still, the possibility is real. And that's what makes this coin so thrilling. Every day, thousands of people check their change, wondering if today is the day they find the penny that will change their lives forever. So the next time you see a 1975 D penny, don't shrug it off. Don't toss it into the change jar. Hold it up to the light. Look at it closely. Because one small mistake from the Denver Mint nearly 50 years ago has turned this coin into one of the most legendary treasures in American history. And who knows, maybe the next discovery will be yours, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when it surfaced at auction, it stunned the entire collecting world, selling for nearly $2 million. And the most shocking part? It wasn't a rare gold coin or an ancient relic locked away in a museum. It was just a simple copper penny. A 1977 Lincoln Memorial penny, with no mint mark. At first glance, it looks ordinary. The kind of coin you've seen thousands of times, passed from one hand to another, tossed into a jar, or forgotten at the bottom of a dresser drawer. But hidden within that unassuming copper surface is a secret. A secret so rare that one coin, found in circulation, became a $1 million miracle. Collectors couldn't believe it. Dealers were whispering about it at shows. How could a penny minted less than 50 years ago, something almost everyone owned, suddenly be worth as much as a mansion? But the answer lies in the way this coin was struck. And it's a story few people outside the deepest corners of the numismatic world know. In 1977, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia struck millions of Lincoln Memorial cents. Unlike coins from Denver or San Francisco, these pennies carried no mint mark. Most were ordinary, quickly churned out, used, and forgotten. But in that massive flood of copper coins, a few slipped through with errors so shocking that collectors would pay anything to own them, and here's where it gets interesting. These mistakes were never meant to be seen by the public. But somehow, they escaped. One of the most famous error types is the double die outburst, a misalignment during striking that causes Lincoln's features, the date, or the word liberty to appear doubled. When collectors spotted this on a 1977 penny with no mint mark, the chase was on. Suddenly, a coin worth just 1 cent became worth thousands, and in pristine condition, over $1 million. But that was only the beginning, because another type of error surfaced: off-center strikes. Imagine holding a penny where Lincoln's face is shifted awkwardly to the side, leaving a crescent of blank copper on one edge. At first, such a mistake seems like factory trash. But to collectors, it's treasure. And in 1977, certain no-mint mark pennies with dramatic off-center strikes began fetching unbelievable sums at auction. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, browsing through a small bag of circulated pennies, spotted something unusual. The date looked thicker, bolder, almost as if it were stamped twice. He brought it to a dealer, who at first dismissed it. But under magnification, the truth revealed itself: it was a doubled die of extraordinary clarity. That one coin eventually sold for an amount no one could have predicted, nearly $1.9 million. Yes, you heard that right. A penny. A simple 1977 no-mint mark penny. Worth more than a house, more than a luxury car, more than some people's lifetime savings. Rarity. Out of the millions upon millions of pennies minted in 1977, only a tiny handful carry these extreme errors. And when a coin is both rare and visually dramatic, collectors will stop at nothing to own it. Now, here's the part that should send chills down your spine: these coins are still out there. They weren't all found. They weren't all locked away in collections. Some are still waiting, hiding in plain sight, tucked inside jars, sitting in boxes of old change, or buried at the back of a dresser drawer, and that means you could find one. Here's the key. On a 1977 penny with no mint mark, study the date carefully. If you see doubling on the numbers, especially the 1 or 7, that's a sign of a doubled die, one of the most valuable mistakes. Next, examine the word liberty. Strong, clear doubling there can turn an ordinary penny into a fortune. Finally, look at Lincoln's eye and profile. If it looks doubled, you may be holding a life-changing treasure, but there's more. Check the alignment of the coin. If Lincoln's bust seems shifted or the memorial on the reverse isn't centered, that's another valuable error. The more dramatic the shift, the more collectors will pay. And if you find one in pristine, uncirculated condition, glowing red as if it just left the mint, its value skyrockets. Collectors were shocked when a penny with such traits crossed the auction block and climbed higher and higher in price, eventually hitting the $1 million mark. Dealers are still talking about it today, calling it one of the most unbelievable sales of modern coinage. And here's the cliffhanger most people don't realize: these errors weren't always caught. The mint's quality control in the 1970s was far from perfect. It was a busy era, with coinage being pumped out for a growing economy. Mistakes slipped through the cracks. And now, decades later, those mistakes are worth more than anyone could have dreamed. You're cleaning out an old desk, sorting through loose change, and suddenly you see it: the date looks strange, the lettering doesn't match what you expect. Your heart races. Could this be it? Could you be holding a penny worth $1.9 million? That's the thrill collectors live for? That's the magic of coin hunting, and it's not just wealthy dealers or experts who find them. Ordinary people, teachers, retirees, teenagers have stumbled upon these treasures. Stories surface of people trading in their change at the bank, only to realize later they gave away a fortune. Others found them in family coin jars, hidden for decades, waiting for the right eyes to see their value. So here's your mission. If you come across a 1977 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it into a jar without looking. Hold it under good light. Use a magnifying glass. Study every detail. Because the difference between 1 cent and $1.9 million could be as small as a double digit or a shifted strike. Remember this, rarity hides in plain sight, and the 1977 no mint mark penny is living proof. So the next time you're handed change at the grocery store, the next time you empty your pockets at the end of the day, take a closer look. Because history has shown us that these coins are still out there, waiting. This penny almost slipped through history unnoticed. A simple coin, struck in 1973 at the Denver Mint, the kind of penny that millions of people tossed into jars, dropped into vending machines, or left to rust at the bottom of a drawer. But hidden among those billions lies one coin so rare, so mysterious, that collectors have fought over it, and when it appeared, it stunned the world by being valued at nearly $1 million. Someone, decades ago, handed over a penny without a second thought. But that tiny coin, with its quiet D-mint mark below the date, wasn't like the others. This was no ordinary Lincoln Memorial penny. It carried a secret, a flaw, a hidden mistake from deep inside the minting process, and that flaw is what transformed a single cent into a life-changing treasure. But what makes the 1973 D penny so powerful in the coin world? The answer is buried in a story of errors, misstrikes, and collectors who never stop searching. Let's rewind to the early 1970s. The U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure. Inflation was rising. Coins were being hoarded. Billions of pennies were struck in a rush, using bronze alloy, a mix of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. The Denver Mint alone produced over 3 billion pennies in 1973. With so many coins flooding the economy, workers were stretched thin, dies were overused, and mistakes were bound to slip through the cracks, and that's where the story of the $1 million penny begins. One coin escaped with errors so subtle that almost no one noticed. Some were struck off-center. Some carried doubled dies, their inscriptions shadowed like ghostly echoes. Others had misaligned mint marks, or faint repunched D marks where the engraver's tool struck twice. And in a handful of cases, the penny was struck on the wrong kind of metal planchet altogether. These rare blunders created coins unlike any other. Collectors who stumble across one of these rare 1973 D varieties describe the moment as surreal. Dealers report paying thousands on the spot. And in one extraordinary case, when a flawless error penny crossed the auction block, the bidding war spiraled out of control. What should have been pocket change skyrocketed, and before the gavel fell, the price had climbed toward $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That single penny, once ignored, made headlines. It proved that hidden treasures still exist, waiting in change jars, tucked in forgotten albums, or resting quietly in an old dresser drawer. For collectors, it became a rallying cry: never overlook the ordinary. Because ordinary pennies can carry extraordinary secrets. Picture this. You spill out a jar of pennies onto your table. You're just sorting through, thinking they're worthless. But then your eye catches something unusual on a 1973 D. The date looks doubled. The D mint mark seems off. Maybe the coin is struck slightly off-center, its edges uneven. Or perhaps the color looks different, a strange silvery shine that suggests it was struck on the wrong metal. You think nothing of it, and toss it aside. But that coin, that tiny detail, could be worth hundreds of thousands, even $1 million. Collectors were shocked when they learned just how many variations exist. Double die obverse pennies, where "In God We Trust" shows a clear shadow. Repunched mint marks, with the D overlapping itself. Off-center strikes that look as though the coin slid during minting. Each of these errors tells a story of human hands, hurried machines, and the chaos inside the mint. And each error can transform a 1-cent coin into a jaw-dropping payday. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. Some 1973 D pennies were struck on leftover planchets from other denominations. Imagine a penny struck on a dime's silver-colored blank. These mistakes were never meant to leave the mint. Yet a few slipped out, passed through the hands of cashiers, waiters, children buying candy, and into the pockets of ordinary people. Today, those coins sell for tens of thousands. And the rarest of them all? That's the one that broke records, bringing its finder to the brink of $1 million miracle. But this story doesn't end there, because somewhere, right now, more of these coins are hiding. Dealers whisper about them. Collectors dream of finding them. And every year, new discoveries prove that even decades later, 1973 pennies with shocking errors are still being uncovered. First, check the date. Look carefully at 1973. Under magnification, a true doubled die will reveal distinct shadowing or doubling, especially in the numbers and in the phrase, "In God we trust." Next, inspect the D mint mark. A repunched mint mark shows an extra outline, like a faint echo of the letter. Then, examine the coin's edges. Is it perfectly round, or does it look shifted, with part of the design missing? An off-center strike could make your penny worth thousands. And finally, weigh the coin. Most 1973 pennies should weigh 3.11 grams. If yours is heavier or lighter, it may have been struck on the wrong planchet, and that's where values explode into the tens of thousands, even approaching the $1 million range. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Dealers are offering cash on the spot. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and yours could too. So the next time you pick up a penny, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it into a jar. Look closer. Look deeper. Because history has a way of hiding its treasures in plain sight, the 1973 D mint mark Lincoln penny, born in chaos, carrying mistakes that turned into miracles, still circulates quietly in America. And right now, it could be resting in your home, waiting for you to notice it. And if you do, that single penny, a coin worth just 1 cent, could change your life forever. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it shocked the entire coin world, selling for nearly $1 million. The 1970 D Lincoln penny looks so ordinary at first glance, the copper coin you've held in your hand thousands of times, tossed into a jar, or left forgotten in a pocket. Yet hidden in this year, with the tiny D mint mark below the date, lies one of the greatest secrets in American numismatics. Collectors couldn't believe it when they discovered what had slipped past the mint's strict quality controls. A coin so small, so ordinary, yet so mysterious, began appearing in whispered conversations among dealers. Some called it a mistake. Others said it was fate. But one thing was certain, it was valuable. And now here's where the story takes a turn. In Denver, where this coin was struck, millions of pennies were produced in 1970. But just a handful, a fraction so tiny you could count them on your fingers, carried a flaw so dramatic that it transformed them into treasures worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in some cases, over $1 million. But what kind of flaw could possibly take a 1-cent coin and elevate it into a life-changing discovery? Dealers call it the 1970 D double die. Under magnification, the date itself looks strange, doubled, as if two shadows of the same numbers were struck into the copper. The 7 in particular seems almost ghostly, split in two. Even the Liberty on the left of Lincoln's portrait shows evidence of duplication. It was a human error during the minting process, one that should never have reached circulation, but it did, and that mistake has become a miracle for collectors. One man pulled such a coin from a roll of pennies bought at his local bank. At first, he almost dismissed it until he noticed the strange doubling. That very coin, once destined to be spent on bubblegum or left forgotten in a drawer, went on to sell for tens of thousands of dollars at auction. And rarer, higher-grade examples have crossed into the six-figure range, pushing toward the $1 million mark. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. As news spread of the 1970 D double die, collectors rushed to search through their old penny jars. Stories began pouring in. People who thought they had nothing suddenly realized their humble coins might hold extraordinary value. One woman discovered hers in a box of keepsakes her late father had left behind. She took it to a dealer, and the dealer's jaw dropped. That little copper coin carried the power of a fortune. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The doubling on the date isn't always obvious to the naked eye. Many casual collectors glance at the coin, see nothing unusual, and toss it aside. But under the right light, with patience and a magnifying glass, the hidden doubling leaps out like a secret finally revealed. Not every 1970 D penny is valuable. In fact, the overwhelming majority are worth only face value. But the rare doubled die, especially in uncirculated condition, is the one that can change everything. That's why experienced collectors treat every 1970D penny like a potential lottery ticket, examining each carefully, hoping for that one extraordinary discovery. Imagine this for a moment: you're holding a single cent in your palm. It feels weightless, meaningless. But in the right form, that same coin is worth more than most houses. That contrast between the ordinary and the extraordinary is what makes the 1970D penny one of the most captivating treasures in modern numismatics. Collectors were shocked when early auction results came in. Prices climbed higher and higher. Bidders refused to back down. And as the gavel came down, the crowd erupted. A coin most people would ignore on the street had just sold for more than the average American earns in a lifetime. But here's where the real suspense begins, because experts believe that many of these coins are still out there. Sitting in drawers. Hiding in dusty jars. Waiting in old bankrolls untouched for decades. Some may even be jingling in the pockets of unsuspecting Americans right now. The mystery of how many survived has never been solved, and that keeps collectors searching with feverish determination. Every time a new one surfaces, the market reacts with awe. Dealers rush to authenticate it, collectors scramble to outbid each other, and the legend of the 1970D penny grows stronger. And each new discovery reignites the same burning question: how many more are still hidden? But here's something most people don't know: there isn't just one variety of the 1970D doubled die. Some show dramatic doubling on the date, others more subtle on the word liberty or in God we trust. The stronger the doubling, the higher the value. And if the coin has been preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition, the price skyrockets. That's why coin grading agencies play such an important role, because the difference between a lower grade example worth a few thousand and a high grade example worth hundreds of thousands can come down to the smallest details of preservation. Think about that. One fingerprint, one scratch, one moment of carelessness could erase the value of $1 million, but what happened next in this story left even veteran collectors speechless. A pristine example of the 1970D doubled die was brought to auction. Collectors whispered about it for weeks beforehand. When the coin finally hit the stage, it shone under the lights, copper glowing, the doubling sharp and undeniable. Bidding erupted instantly. Within minutes, the price soared into six figures. And by the time the gavel dropped, the hammer price had stunned even the most seasoned experts. The 1970D penny could change someone's life forever. So how do you know if you have one of these rare treasures? Here's exactly what to look for. Take out your 1970D pennies. Look closely at the date. If you see doubling on the 7, if the 0 looks thicker, or if the Liberty and In God We Trust show ghostly doubling, you might be holding a fortune. The doubling is the key. Without it, the coin is worth little more than face value. But with it, especially if the coin is clean, untarnished, and uncirculated, it could be worth a staggering amount. And don't make the mistake of assuming only old coins carry value. This is proof that even a relatively modern penny, barely 50 years old, can be $1 million miracle if it carries the right error. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you open that forgotten jar of change, or when you dig through a roll of pennies from the bank, remember this story. Remember the coin that almost ended up in the trash, but instead became a legend. The 1970D doubled die penny is more than just a coin. It's a reminder that treasure still hides in plain sight. That miracles can be found in the most ordinary places. And that sometimes, the smallest things carry the biggest surprises. So check your change carefully, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.